Hi, welcome to Give Me the Bible, where God's Word speaks for itself. In the last video, we talked about our need to limit our opportunities to carry out the desires of our flesh. But in this video, we want to talk about being brutally honest with ourselves, about the influences in our lives, about the opportunities that we are providing for ourselves to carry out our lust. Because the truth is, and we just really need to learn this, the truth is, most sin is not random, and most sin is not sudden. And yet sometimes we act like that. Sometimes we commit a sin, and it's a sin that we keep committing over and over again, and we think to ourselves, why am I doing this? How could this be happening? This is so random. I don't understand why I'm struggling with this sin. When the truth is, if we're really brutally honest with ourselves and we look carefully at our hearts and at our lives, and at the things that we allow to influence us, we'll probably see that there's a reason we're committing those sins. For instance, look in Proverbs chapter 7. In Proverbs 1 through 7, really, and on into the following few chapters in Proverbs through like chapter 10, there's this heavy emphasis on making sure to keep God's commandments. And here this is a father instructing his son, and one of the things that he continues to warn his son about is the adulterous woman who will come and seduce him and will cause him to sin. But I want you to notice what it says in Proverbs 7 verse 6. For at the window of my house I looked out through my lattice, and I saw among the naive and discerned among the youths a young man lacking sense, passing through the street near her corner, and he takes the way to her house in the twilight, in the evening, in the middle of the night, and in the darkness, and behold, a woman comes to meet him dressed as a harlot and cunning of heart. And then it talks about how later she tempts him, and he comes and commits adultery with her and causes him to sin. Okay? But I want you to see that this sin was not random. This sin was not sudden. This was something that could have been avoided, but it all started when he went near to her house. He took the way that passed by her house. And so many times that's what we do. We fall into sin because we're taking the path near sin. We're walking down the road right alongside sin, and then we're falling into it. We're allowing things to influence us for evil. And I want to just give you an example of that. For instance, in my life, I used to have a really bad anger issue, and I would just be so mad at the world, and I'd be cussing all the time. Not really to other people, because I didn't really, want my dad to find out and get in trouble and all that. But I would cuss to myself a lot about other people. And I couldn't figure out where that was coming from. I didn't understand. Why am I like this? Why am I so angry? And then when I really started thinking about it, I was listening to music by Eminem and by Mystical. And I'm hoping that you haven't heard that music, but if you have, you'll know that music is full of anger and full of hatred and full of nasty language. And so guess what? Since I was listening to all that stuff was coming out in my life and in my heart. And it may be the same for you with your music, or it may be with the movies that you watch. It may be with the places that you go. It may be with the friends that you spend time with. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15:33, do not be deceived. Evil companions corrupt good morals. Okay, but really that's what happens. We deceive ourselves into thinking, well, we're not really giving ourselves opportunity to sin. We're not really allowing these influences or these things to influence us, and the truth is we are. And listen, it may cost us a lot. It may be hard to sacrifice some of these things. I loved listening to Eminem and Mystical, as hard as that may be for some of you all to believe. I loved listening to that stuff. That was hard for me to give up. But you know what? I also love my hand and I love my eyes. But Jesus says in Matthew 5 that I need to be willing to give those up if those are causing me to sin. So we need to be brutally honest with ourselves. Many times we're just in denial about the things that cause us to sin because we don't want to give them up. Because we know if I admit that, hey, my computer is causing me to sin, or my iPhone is causing me to sin, or this friend of mine is causing me to sin, well, then I have to give it up, and I don't want to do that. And so we just go along in denial, and we keep walking by sin's house, and we keep falling into sin, and we're making provision for our lusts. So it's time to get serious. It's time to get real and examine your heart, examine your life. We all have to do that on a daily basis and make sure that we're not making provisions for our flesh so that we can avoid sinning against our God. I hope that that's clear and helpful. Lord willing, I'll see you next time.